Hello, and welcome to the premiere edition of Conversation Collage. We talk with interesting people, we talk about the things they're interested in, we try and keep it light and friendly, and if you're not careful, you might learn something at the end. I'm your host, Ken Johannesson, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this, our premiere voyage. I feel confident in saying that this is the first time you've heard this program because this is the first time we've done it. And so I think you'll enjoy it. And as we go along here, I think you'll get the gist of what we're trying to do here. We come to you from Wenatchee, Washington, the apple capital of the world and the buckle of the power belt of the great Northwest. That's what it says on the masthead of our local paper here, so take that for what it's worth. Tell you what, let's get right into it. First off, we're all in some way obsessed with royalty, aren't we? Yeah, and now that there's baby Archie in the world, guess what? Just in time for that, there is a new streaming service devoted to royalty. It's called True Royalty TV, and we talked with the co-founder and the co-editor of True Royalty TV. His name is Nick Bullen, and he's been covering the royals for a long time, and we talked with him not too long ago about True Royalty TV, about the programming they have, and just why we're so obsessed with the royals.
Hi, Ken. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
My pleasure having you on here. Where are you today?
I'm in London, just a stone's throw from Buckingham Palace.
It's
pretty grey London, but it's still near the palace.
As we talk, it's almost tea time for you guys, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. We'll be tucking into our tea and scones like every good Brit does.
There we go. And I'm sure a lot of them will be tuning into True Royalty TV. Tell me about this. What is this all about?
So it's a really exciting new streaming service that we have launched in the UK and in the States. It's the only service that's created to satisfy the millions of fans of the British royal family and royalty across the globe. But it's mainly the British royal family that people are wanting to tune into. And we've got hundreds of hours of content that takes you from little baby Archie and Meghan and Harry and Kate and William right through Diana and the Queen and back to even the Tudor times and the kings that chopped off the heads of their wives. So
lovely.
Whatever you want on British royalty, it's here for you to find.
Okay, so we got a whole bunch of stuff. I know a number of people who are just fascinated with the royal family and they follow it very closely. So how did you get involved in this, and what have you learned through being involved in all of this?
I've been working with the British royal family on a TV level for the last nearly 30 years, and I started off as a tea boy on a TV show, making tea for them, and over the years started making documentaries with them. We did the Queen's 90th birthday party. We've done access documentaries with Charles and Camilla. We spent time with William and Harry in Africa. So we've built up a sort of a trusted relationship with them and their households. And it became apparent really quickly that the demand for royalty was just getting bigger. It was huge around Diana, but with Meghan's arrival, it was even bigger again. And we decided it was time to start giving people access to royal programming and all their favorite royals 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on the go, at home, wherever they wanted. So this service was born, and it's been, thankfully, a huge success so far.
Honestly, do the royals, do the Windsors, do they like this attention? Do they enjoy this?
I think it's a tricky question. I think we know that William and Harry are both very wary of the press. They blame the press in many ways, certainly the paparazzi, for their mother's death.
Sure.
So I think, given their choice, they would live a private life. But they'd listen to their grandmother. And the Queen has this great saying, which is, we have to be seen to be believed. And that's the reality. This family has to be seen. Now, years ago, you could do it by doing a walkabout on the streets and shaking hands and doing a few TV shows. But now the family has to play on a global stage. So they're aware that their brand and their presence has to be played out globally. And you see Harry now agreeing to work with Oprah on a new show. William's working with Netflix on a new show. And what we're doing is bringing all of the best royal content into under one roof and saying to the world, okay, if you want to know about William and Harry and Kate and Meghan, come to True Royalty and we'll tell you the truth. You can get behind the headlines, behind the gossip, and we can give you the real story.
And I'm sure that since you've been involved with the Royals for so many years, that this is going to be a dignified presentation, because in so many facets there's the urge to sensationalize this. So I'm sure this is going to be a very classy presentation.
It is. I mean, if your listeners take a look, if they type in True Royalty TV into their search engine, they'll find the service and they'll see that it is exactly that. We've got a documentary called Meghan and Harry, The Baby Years.
Right.
And we've done that with the presenter of that is the Sunday Times royal correspondent. She's the journalist that Harry probably trusts the most. Roya Nika is her name, and Harry introduced Meghan to her in the very early stages of their relationship. And so that's what we do. We work with people that the royal family trust, and we only put programs on that are celebratory of the royal family. We're not in the business of gossip and scandal. We want to celebrate the family and allow the viewers of the service to get to the truth about this family.
Nick, they're going to give me the hook here, so I got to move on, I know, and let you go here. Where can people find out more and sign up for all of this?
So just into your search engine, trueroyalty.tv. It's on Apple apps, Android apps. It's on the Comcast X1 Xfinity system. It's $5.99 a month, and we hope you enjoy it.
Nick Bullen, I thank you for a few minutes out. Best of luck on this, and take care in London.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
That's Nick Bullen. He's the co-editor and co-founder of True Royalty TV, and we talked with him from London, England. It's Conversation Collage. I'm Ken Johannesson. Pleasure to have you along for our maiden voyage here into podcast land. This is an old team learning some new tricks here. I have been doing interviews like the one you just heard for more years than I care to remember or even admit to. And so people say I'm good at it, and so they said, well, why not do a podcast? Well, here I am. And I think you'll hear from a lot of interesting people on this podcast, and so we hope you'll tune in every week or whenever there's a new one. So keep in touch with us, follow us, and I think we'll keep you entertained with some interviews with good people who have something interesting to say. So we hope you enjoy it. We hope you'll converse with us. I'm sure there's a way of emailing us and getting in touch with us, and we'd love to hear what you think about it. So let's move on. As this podcast is being released, it is the week of the 50th anniversary of man's landing on the moon, Apollo 11. Without giving too much information, I remember it. I remember getting up early to watch the blast-off, which happened at about 6:30 my time, so I remember getting up very early. I remember watching Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon. I remember being hushed by my dad because I had said something or was talking, and my dad said to me, "Be quiet," during the moonwalk. And I remember the splashdown and not being able to see it until later because the cameras, it was too far away or something like that. But of course, the missions to the moon didn't start with Apollo 11. It started with Apollos 7, 8, 9, and 10. Apollo 8 in particular is what we're going to cover today because that was more than 50 years ago. That was in December of 1968, and it really set the stage for what was to come later. It was equal parts fearless and reckless, ingenious and impulse, a calculated risk, a wild crapshoot, because NASA, fearing that they were behind Russia in the space race, and that thinking that in 1968 a mission to the moon was anyway at least 2 years away, and that would have broken President Kennedy's promise of getting a man to the moon and having him return safely by the end of the 1960s, that would have been in jeopardy. So they tore up the mission's schedule and told 3 brave men that they were going into the moon in 4 months. All this is explained in a book that was written not too long ago called Apollo 8, The Thrilling Story of the First Mission to the Moon. Jeffrey Kluger is the author, and he was the author with Jim Lovell of Apollo 13, and that is what the movie was based on, that book, Apollo 13. But we talked with him about Apollo 8. Jeffrey Kluger, hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Where are you today?
I am in New York City in the Flatiron Building on 23rd Street.
I know that building. I haven't been to it, but I know where it is, and I'm envious of you. Hopefully it's a nice day in New York. I hear it is.
It is. It's prematurely humid. So
oh, good. So great. The humidity festival came early.
Exactly.
I've been in New York in August, so I know all about that.
Oh my goodness. New York in August is... It's where you go if you were bad in your last life. That's what I like to say.
It's very true, especially if you have to go into a subway station. Into a tunnel. Oh gosh, it's unbearable. Apollo 8, the thrilling story of the first mission to the moon. What brought this book about?
Well, it was a mission. It was a book I had long wanted to write, and it was a mission I had long wanted to write about. I wrote Apollo 13 first just because it was, how could you resist that survival mission? But to me, as someone who grew up with Apollo 8 and who always appreciated this, Apollo 8 to me was the transformative mission, because while Apollo 11, say, was the first moon landing, and Apollo 13 was the great adventure, and Apollo 17 was the time human beings spent 3 full days on the lunar surface, Apollo 8 was the first time we became a two-world species. It was the first time humanity pulled itself away from the gravitational grip of Earth, went into the gravity well of a different world, and that crew Borman, Lovell, and Anders became satellites of the moon. They became beings of the moon for the 20 hours they were there. To me, that was the pivotal moment, and I mean, people throughout history have made this point. Neil deGrasse Tyson has made this point. Charles Lindbergh made this point when they said the truly pivotal transformational mission was Apollo 8, and it doesn't get enough credit for that.
I remember those times because I was 8 years old right around then, and it was Christmas time, and I remember walking around with my sister in the snow. We had a rare snowfall in Seattle, and we would go from place to place holding a portable a GE Mariner radio tuned to get the latest on the mission. I remember that very well. And when you talk about the importance of that mission, yeah, it was important in that we left this Earth and went to another celestial being or a celestial area, but the timing of what was going on in this world at that time played a role in that as well, in making it so special.
Yeah, that's right, and that is also, I'm glad you raised that, because that also is one of the contextual reasons I wanted to write this book. 1968 was, by any measure, the most blood-soaked year in modern human history. There was the Bobby Kennedy assassination, the Martin Luther King assassination. There were riots in U.S. cities across the country. There was the riots at the Democratic Convention. There was the Tet Offensive at Vietnam. There was the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia. There were riots in Mexico City and Paris and elsewhere. The world was bleeding from 1,000 self-inflicted wounds. And then here was the United States, who made this insane but inspired choice in the summer that by Christmas time we would have 3 human beings orbiting the moon. It was extraordinarily ambitious. It was extraordinarily hubristic in some ways to think we could do it, and yet it was also extraordinarily curative when it happened. When these guys orbited the moon on Christmas Eve, they had an audience of 1 billion people watching that broadcast. There were only 3.5 billion people on the planet then. That meant close to 1 out of every 3 human beings was watching the same program at the same time as a billion other human beings. At the end of 1968, the wars that had been fought could never be unfought. The people who died that year could not become undead. But the year could be redeemed in some way. The year could be elevated in some way, and humanity itself could be healed a little bit for that. And when the crew got back, they received all manner of adulation. But what stuck with Boorman, Lovell, and Enders the most was one simple card that came from a writer whose